So thank you all for coming. I don't know how used this crowd is to lecture capture and how much you guys know about it. So I'm going to start from scratch, sort of introduce the technology, and then kind of bring you up to speed on Panopto and how we do it. So Panopto is an end-to-end lecture capture platform, and that's actually, it seems like it should be self-defined, right? Lecture capture sounds like capture a lecture and put it online. It's an easy process, right? It turns out that the more of it you do, and the bigger scale you get to, the more problems start to materialize. And so over the past several years, we've morphed into a platform that can do recording and webcasting. It can import video content and code it for different devices. It can act as a full-scale searchable video CMS. It can edit content, and you can view content on any kind of device on any network. So I just kind of want to introduce the company itself. We're actually a spin-off of Carnegie Mellon University. And one of the neat things about where we came from is that we kind of had a real luxury. We were able to test a lot of ideas about how to make lecture capture a really simple process and how to get out of the instructor's way and how to kind of build something for scale and incubate it as a project at CMU and put it in the field and actually test it and iterate before we had to go and sort of fend for ourselves and make enough money to support ourselves. So we actually started off in 2002 and spent about 5 years sort of building technology, and then spun off in 2007 into what is now Panopto. And since then, we've kind of been growing like wildfire. We've got 450 now universities and corporations that use Panopto. A couple of big names you might recognize: Duke, Auburn, I think probably some other people here. We're sort of targeting bigger and bigger scale, so campus-wide deployments, pervasive lecture capture. And so we've grown quite a bit. We're up to about, I think, 50 people in the company. And we have offices in Seattle, which is where I'm based. I run the engineering team, support team there. An office in Pittsburgh near CMU, and an office in London. So we're actually an international company. We serve all time zones. So I said before, we've grown quite a bit. We started off as just a CMU internal project, and we've kind of been, I guess, sweeping up customers. Really, I think, in part as a reaction to two things. The emergence of lecture capture as a must-have technology. There was one customer that I think was quoted as saying that it would be sort of the new email on campus. It was just a utility that everybody expected to have. And in part, it's a reaction to the costs of lecture capture in the past, of capturing media. So one thing it's interesting to point out, all of these sessions here today and the whole conference are being captured, but they're not being captured using just sort of simple software and commodity stuff. They're captured using big iron AV technologies. And that's kind of the state of the world. So Panopto is sort of an answer to that. The then state of lecture capture is, the way most people think of this right now is it's really just something sort of simple and basic. You have a way to capture what happens in the classroom and what the instructor is presenting. And then it goes online and the students get to it. Well, that's okay if you want to do all of your education in the classroom. But the world of education delivery is sort of changing before our eyes. So now the kind of target consumption platform is an iPad. And the target creation scenario is a couple of students in a group project recording their own content, or an instructor in their own office saying, I'm going to put together a presentation about this thing I'm going to teach tomorrow. All of you students should go and watch it. It's actually self-serve, it's pervasive. And so it's gone from being this very expensive sort of high-touch domain of the AV team, domain of the gatekeeper sort of thing, to being something that anybody should be able to do on demand whenever they want in any scenario. So the Duke University use case that I just love talking about is every class in every classroom at every college in Duke University forever. So they're generating right now 5 terabytes of content every semester, I think, and that's just going to increase. And beyond just capturing every class, they want to give the utility to capture whatever they want to every instructor, TA, and student at Duke University. So this is where things are headed. It's just going to be sort of a pervasive thing. So this is just kind of a screenshot sweep of what we do, but we sort of divide the core roles of Panopto into a couple of basic ideas. There's recording, and recording really means anything in any context, in any sort of flexible way. So one of the big problems we had, and actually I think I'm going to switch my slide back here. Well, I'll plow through this, but I have a slightly more detail. But one of the biggest problems with lecture capture is that if you asked everybody in this room, what are the important things to capture in the classroom, you would actually get a lot of different answers. So some people are going to say, I want my audio and my PowerPoint. That's all I care about. I'm not going to edit it. I just want it to go online. Other people are going to say, I teach with 2 projection screens, one showing code, another one showing PowerPoint slides. I'm going to draw on the whiteboard. I'm going to use a document camera, and you have to keep up with all of it because don't tell me how to give my lectures. So that's really the instructor set that we're targeting. We've built an all-software solution that's meant to be sort of accessible to anybody. And you know, in order to have that reach adoption group for it to be sort of pervasive, it has to feel to every user like it targets their use case. So this may be kind of a bad analogy because you know, a lot of people think of Excel as a big, complex, heavyweight piece of software, and it is. But you know, one of the things about Excel is that everyone thinks that their 1% of the functionality of Excel is the core functionality of the product. But no one's, you know, they can't all be right. So we do kind of any sort of recording in any context, and that can mean everything from this kind of recording. You've got a guy in the back room, video camera, in the front room, I'm presenting some slides. We shouldn't have to talk to each other, so we should be able to separate our roles. To somebody just opening a laptop and doing a recording, like I hope to do later. To mobile recording with your cell phones, and sort of anything in between. Everything from traditional big iron all the way down to kind of on-demand, sort of low-end ad hoc. Another thing that people see as sort of a fundamental requirement of a system like this is that it has to be something that you can do some basic things. Nobody ever sort of nails, I guess, a presentation in a classroom is, in a lot of cases, a messy thing. You have people wandering around at the beginning of the lecture. You have people, for example, trying to get their computer on the network or trying to get their slides up. It's actually not true. And so having an easy way to let people sort of modify the timeline, cut things out, and sort of just clean things up to get them ready for distribution, that's a must-have feature. Video search is really one of the killer must-have features because if you start to generate, like Duke is, thousands, tens of thousands of hours of content every semester, what you're actually doing is you're creating a discovery point. You have so much content you're generating that you have to give students tools to be able to say, you know what, I need to review this one lecture on computational geometry that was taught a couple of weeks ago, and I want to know everything that Panopto knows about this. I should be able to type in a single search query and get directly to the part of the content I care about. So I'll show that in just a second. And then finally, you have to be able to do it anywhere and any place. And this is actually an incredibly challenging problem. So I don't know how many people own iPads? Great, that's actually amazing. How many people own Android devices? Yep, so there's a problem already. We've got 2 different device form factors. Androids are actually a dozen different device form factors. Then you've got Macs, PCs, all the different browsers, all the different network connections from 3G to LAN. You have a serious problem on your hands if you haven't got kind of a single unified way to get video from the point of acquisition to the point of delivery. So, you know, one of the kind of joking taglines we have for Panopto is that you don't need it until you've failed with something else. And one of the ways to fail with something else is start to, well, how hard can it be? Just a couple of different formats. I'm just going to go capture some video, and I'll just put it on a web server somewhere. And as soon as that train leaves the station, as soon as you start down this road, you discover all of these additional problems, like how do I scale? How do I manage it? How do I back it up? How do I access control? How do I integrate it with something like Instructure so the students don't have to sign in twice? Basic stuff. And so you have to have a solution that sort of covers everything. So another piece of this is, what do you do with existing content? You can't have, well, you can have, but it's, I guess, less than ideal, to have one system that covers sort of all the things that you record in the classroom, things that you record in TAs or home recording, and then a whole different system that handles all of the campus's meetings. So, you know, video that people post-produce, they put online. And so what this kind of boils down to for us is that there is an emerging need for a single place on campus where you handle all of your media, you solve all the problems of distribution, and you solve all the problems with access control. So that's sort of what we went and did. And sharing really is just another word for access control. Another thing that I should point out is that it's not just an on-demand use case. One of the things that you have to be able to do is actually to handle both live delivery, so people that are going to be remote and are going to want to watch it live and engage live, and also on-demand delivery, people who are in a different time zone, different part of the country, different part of the world, and should be able to get that as they want. And, you know, again, as I said, there are lots and lots of other basics. The more you look at this problem, the bigger and sort of nastier it gets. You build a schedule reports. That's a way to get to scale and make lots of content. You have to do analytics. You have to see if you're doing something useful with your content. Are students getting anything out of this? Are you getting good learning outcomes? Are people using it? You have to be able to integrate with an LMS. If you're using Instructure, and there's no easy way to take 100,000 hours of content or 10,000 hours of content, and to get that online without humans being involved in the process, you have another serious problem. So you have to have LMS integration. And finally, nothing is ever sort of one size fits all. People often want to extend these sorts of solutions. And so to do that, you have to have a public API. So this is kind of I guess, a long-winded way of introducing who we are and what we do. But what I really want to talk about is not, what the kind of high-level definition of lecture capture is, but sort of what's happening next. So one of the big sort of what's next things is that lecture capture is no longer a feature. And I put a service because a service means that you have to call another department, you have to pay some money, you have to send people to go capture something. And if it's not self-serve, it can't be pervasive. So users want this pervasive recording, and they want universally available tools. So one of the things that Panopto can do is record from basically any piece of hardware. I'm going to record from my laptop with a webcam. We can record from that camera right there. Record from mobile phones, and so just sort of always on capture for everyone. And that means things like broad hardware compatibility, and again, coverage of all these different scenarios. So as I said before, some instructors want audio and PowerPoint. Some instructors want screens, smartboard, document cameras, and a host of other sort of challenging things to capture. So what this means is that we have to have a new architecture to solve this problem, and that's what sort of Panopto is. And I want to sort of shamelessly take a page from the CEO's presentation this morning and say, this is really a cloud software to the rescue sort of problem space. You need an information system that is sort of this holistic thing. It's managed. It's an always-on service. And so what people want is this infinite scale, but they want constrained cost. Now that's really the hard part. That's what we're out to solve. So to the cloud we go. So I think really quickly, I just wanted to switch over to a different version of this presentation. It's got a little bit more in it, and just work from that one. So bear with me for just a second. Just sort of momentum killer that I like to go for. All right, so this is my I guess more boring, less marketing sort of version, but I like it better. So we'll skip ahead of this a little bit. All right, so now we're back up to speed. All right, so I think we've covered all this stuff. And so once you have this idea of completely pervasive lecture capture, just being everywhere and being kind of, don't have to think about it, don't have to worry about costs, don't have to worry about training sort of utility, you can do kind of the basics. As I said, you can capture everything. But what you really can start doing is some new scenarios that without this aren't possible. For starters, if you tell students, as an institution, our contract with you is that everything that you would otherwise attend in person is always available online in a quality level that's as good as being there. Now you've got this sort of extra advantage. And in fact, we found, I think there was a poll a while back, that 80% of students, given two identical choices, would prefer one that does lecture capture. So once you have this, it's sort of a contract with the students, and it allows people to know that they can review things, make them up, and so on. But it also gets you into scenarios where you can say, okay, if I can broadcast, if anybody can broadcast from their desk, like I can do here, then you have now an option for cost-effective remote delivery. This has been a really challenging sort of technical problem to solve. I mean, there's a lot of discussion right now about these sort of certificate programs and the things that Harvard and edX and Coursera and this whole host of other companies are doing. But that sort of is based on having something that is as good as being there for a remote student. And that's one of the things that pervasive broadcast and lecture capture can enable. But I think the really powerful one is something I alluded to earlier, which is a flipped classroom. And that means that what you can do is reclaim the most valuable thing that a on-campus brick-and-mortar university has to offer, which is you can give people all the one-to-many instruction. For example, we're not having a dialogue. I'm sort of talking, I'm presenting my slides. This is something that lecture capture is perfect for because people can deliver this before the class and say, every student, you should watch this before you come to class. And then you can reclaim that class time for collaboration, which is really the sort of premium thing that you can't duplicate anywhere else. So this flipped classroom model has been tried at a lot of universities. We actually have a case study on our website from, I think it's Aberystwyth in the UK. And students love it because they felt like they had this great connection with their professors that otherwise was just sort of this passive one-to-many sort of instruction. So this is really a transformative technology. And that's kind of what I want, hopefully, everybody to take away from this. So backing away a sec from sort of the loftiness of transformative technology, next generation of education, and so on, what are some concrete things that we've done with our product that can get us from where we are technically today to where we want to be? One of them is that we've just released an iOS application. So I have a couple of screenshots in a second, but that's essentially it's an attempt at giving people sort of a full service way to get to Panopto through nothing but their mobile phone. So using the iOS application, you can log into your Panopto server through your LMS if you want to, and you'll see only content that you're entitled to see. So if I'm enrolled in 5 courses, I'm going to see my 5 courses and nothing else. I don't have to wade through some big system. I'm just going to see what I'm supposed to see. And then you can also search that content right from your phone. And when you find what you want, you can click it and begin playing it back, again, right from your phone. And finally, this is actually a high-definition video camera. So everybody that's got one of these in their pocket, they should have a way to contribute to create content. For example, we have nursing programs, speech classes, communication training classes, anything where someone might be reviewed on how they present themselves. This is sort of a killer app. It gives a student a way to actually create a presentation without involving any other gatekeeper, anybody else. A second one is, and there's no lot to talk about this in Instructure Canvas so far, is basic LTI. So we have kind of, I think we share a bit of good luck with Instructure itself in coming into this market at a time when there's a lot of pressure to move towards standardization. And so everybody is able to kind of work with basic LTI. So if you can do that, not only do we get integration with Instructure, but we get integration with basically anything that supports basic LTI. So that reduces friction for students. And really the problem space we're in is about taking every little bit of the workflow of getting from somebody who's creating content to somebody who's consuming content and just making it easy, driving out those little bits of inefficiency that make it painful. There's a reason why Amazon's one-click patent is kind of a big deal. They reduce the number of clicks it takes to buy something online down to 1. That's the advantage. It's not that it can't be done another way. It's just that much less painful. And if you add up that kind of effect across this kind of a big, broad system, you get something that feels easier and is cheaper to scale. So another thing that we've added is, and this is kind of, I think, a strategic thing for us, is remote control recorders. So I don't know how many of you, just a show of hands, who's investigated or has deployed lecture capture solutions? Okay, so it looks like about half. One of the big challenges is that sort of first decision. Do I go with an appliance or do I go with software? How many people have deployed appliances? Wow, that's really small. So one of the nice things about appliances is it's kind of a toaster. You know, it's something that you rack into a room and you walk away. And that just means that room is now a lecture capture room. Anything that goes on in there can be recorded. So the problem with appliances is they're very expensive and they're tied to a room. So is there a way that you can get kind of the best of both worlds, to be able to have anybody record whenever they want and also be able to have that kind of certainty and reliability of appliances? And so we built a system where you can essentially build your own appliances out of consumer hardware for a few $100s and schedule them remotely. Now, the neat thing about this is, let's say that you're an administrator of a program, your department. Giving people a way to kind of immediately capture everything in a classroom without even having to plan it, just having kind of on-demand recording. That's kind of a step towards pervasive capture for everything. So, you know, I don't want to get into a demo of that because it's probably not worthwhile, but the idea of just kind of making it easy at every point to capture content, that's sort of our philosophy. So, and the last piece, of course, that Basic LTI enables is quick and painless instruction integration. So I hope to show you that. One thing I didn't talk about at all was student recording, which is really, it's just a feature we added to enable anybody who has access to a course to be able to submit things to a Dropbox. So one of the things that instructors ask us for a lot is, I want to give my students recording, but I don't want them to be able to see or manipulate their content. I don't want anybody to be able to delete things that other students made, cheat on assignments, and so on. And so we built a system that lets people create things where you can put them in, but you can't take them out unless they're used. You can't modify them unless they're used. This is just a set of screenshots of the iPhone app. Probably not worth talking through at this point. But let's have some fun. Let's go do a demo. So what I want to quickly show is just what this looks like in Instructure Canvas. So this is I'll have to back up at the top, but let's say that I've just come into to Canvas here. And I want to go to one of my courses. I'm an instructor. I can go to my Biology 101 course, and there's a little tool over here on the left called Panopto. So I click on Panopto. And it's actually going to open within Instructure a view of all of my Panopto content in my folder. Again, assuming that I have no connection. So crushingly slowly this is going to come down. But you get the idea, which is basically I've got two completely separate systems where my identity is shared across the systems. And this isn't radical, but it's something that everybody expects. Nobody should ever have to maintain, let's say you're a 100,000 student school, 100,000 accounts in system A and 100,000 accounts in system B. That's one of the core challenges that you sort of have to solve along the way to large scale. So if I'm an instructor, having gone directly to Canvas, I can now go into Panopto and click the record button and say, I want to launch my recording. And I actually have it running already, so I can just go over there. So what I kind of want to end with here is just the workflow for actually creating one of these pieces of content, and then show you kind of the end stage. So this is a Panopto recorder. It knows who I am, and it knows, it looks like I'm offline here, so this may not be as interesting, but it knows who I am, it knows what devices I have, and it's capturing my screen and my PowerPoint. So all I need to know to be able to do a recording is hit the start recording button. I'm going to continue offline because I don't have a server connection right now. And that's it. Now I'm recording. So I could, at this point, go back to PowerPoint and just start presenting. And Panopto is going to capture all my slides as I change them. Apparently, the computer's dog. So it'll capture my slides as I change them. It'll index all the text on every slide to make it searchable. It'll create a table of contents for students. It'll capture my screen and any software I show. In fact, any video I show on my screen. And when I'm done, I just go back to Panopto and hit stop, and it's going to publish it online. That's the entire workflow for doing a recording. So your choices are 3 clicks, which is sort of doing it yourself, or 0 clicks, having it scheduled. But where it all winds up is the same place. It all goes right back to Instructure, where when a student logs into their course, they see pieces they see captured lectures as they come out of the system. And the publishing time of a captured lecture on a non-cell phone network connection is about 60 seconds. So think about that. You've got all day long, 8 hours a day, every classroom on campus. You've got captures of content with the slides represented, the screen. They're fully searchable, they've got video, and they're going online seconds after the lecture ends. So I, as an instructor, walk out of the classroom, I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to learn anything new. I basically just do what I do, but the students get this incredible resource. So I have a couple of these open already, and I'll just show you what a piece of Panopto content looks like. So this is a recording that we did with University of Pittsburgh a while back. It's been a great sort of reference point for us. But this is sort of the typical experience that people expect. There's video of the instructor, and I'm not going to play it up over the cell phone, but there's a searchable table of contents. I've got images of my slides, and I basically just have a way to navigate through this content. So a lot of what we're about is giving students a way to find, once they're in a recording, to find a needle in the haystack. I don't know if anybody's watched a lecture on YouTube, but if you don't want to watch it from end to end, it's actually really painful. You'd have to kind of like seek around, click the scroll bar, try to figure out what the thing you want is. Wouldn't it be great if the system could just figure that out at record time based on what the presenter is presenting? So, one of the things that is sort of where we came from is anybody who builds slides has essentially created tagging for everything they're going to talk about in the presentation. And so if we can capture that, we can give you search. So we built a system to capture that. All right, so unfortunately, my script is kind of all over the place from not having a good network connection. But that's kind of the basics of what we do. And so I guess at this point, I'm happy to take some questions. We do support closed captioning. So there are 2 ways to do it. You can do it using machines, which is not very good for ADA compliance, or you can do it with humans, which is great, but it costs a little bit more. That's a fully automated service. That's right. So the way that the human process works is that we outsource that. So the audio goes out to somebody, they transcribe it, it comes back. But from the user's perspective, it's an automatic thing. Think of it like a very slow piece of computing. Yeah. Well, that continues to be a challenge, and the best way to do it still is to sort of hang a mic over the students. You can repeat questions, which actually I was asked to do, and I didn't do right there. So the question was, how do you capture student interaction? Whoops. It's really, there are a lot of hard problems in this, but the best way to do it is still to kind of mix down one audio feed. The technology isn't really there to try to kind of digitally mix from multiple sites audio that might overlap. You can get weird artifacts ringing. It's I'm geeking out, but it's a really hard problem. You can. In fact, now that you upload your own transcript, you can create your own transcript using our editor. So you can follow along and actually transcribe something yourself. DFXP is what we use, but we're going to do, SRT is the one we're adding. Yeah. You can. So there are a couple ways to do this. One of them is that we support a kind of an embedding workflow where you could do, I'll show you an example of it. You can do an embedded player a lot like YouTube, so it's actually an object embedded in the web page. Or you can link, wow, look at this. So I love it when this happens. This is our actual support based on what our users do. It kind of, it varies between about 97% and 99%. Doesn't usually hit 100, so I'm thrilled to be able to show this off today. This is our brand right here, is that we make problems involved in scaling lecture capture go away. So these are two embedded players, and so if I just want to see how do I use the Windows recorder, I can play this right in the browser. It's a more down-level experience. It's actually sort of targeted at mobile players. But if you just don't want to break people's context and sort of force them to see something full screen, you can do that. And actually, this is not the question that you asked, but I can full screen this too. Not the question you asked, but you can actually embed, you can go the other direction. You can embed content into a Panopto presentation. So you can attach a PDF, or you can designate events on the timeline that instead of opening a PowerPoint slide or a screen capture video, they open a web page that's interactive. So you can embed interactive content right into the video content. Yeah. That's right. So actually, if again, assuming that I can have this behave, I think I may have even taken some notes in this presentation. So if you look here, let's say that I'm a student watching either a live broadcast, or I'm sitting in the classroom and taking notes, which will sync up with the presentation that goes online, or I'm watching on demand. What I can do is I can leave myself kind of a trail of breadcrumbs that help me get back to parts of the recording I care about. Or I can have dialogues with other students about parts of the recording we care about together. So if I say, this is something I should review, I can actually go back and watch this later and search for review. And that's going to find where I myself typed this in. So I said to myself, wow, I got to come back and review this part. And now I'm reviewing. So this is sort of the promise of the tool, is instant access to the parts you care about. They can, and the best way to do it is, the way that we design notes is a lot like Twitter hashtags. You can kind of slice up, dialogues within what we call a channel, but really is the same thing as a hashtag. So several people identified as themselves, because they're all coming in through Instructure, could have a dialogue in one of these channels. In terms of interactivity, like asking a question to the presenter, we don't have the sort of ask a question, email the presenter thing built yet. That's something that's sort of on the roadmap. But that sort of leads into another discussion, which is there are kind of two really non-overlapping sets of video technologies. There's technology for having a live conversation, like Skype uses, or like Illuminator, some of the kind of Adobe Connect. And these are very, very good for low latency collaboration. They're very bad for scale. So you have an upper limit of, I think, a couple of hundred users even for the premium versions. And at the same time, you don't actually create video as a result of that you can reuse. It's actually only kind of good for live interaction. We went the other direction, which is we introduced a tiny bit of latency, about 10, 15 seconds into the live broadcast. In exchange for that, our viewer maximum count is actually bounded by the size of our content. So Akamai claims they can do 2 million simultaneous viewers, which means our simultaneous viewer count is 2 million. So for that little bit of latency, you get ultra high quality compression, you get instant publishing, and you get live broadcast to larger user bases, but you don't get kind of you and I having a voice conversation over a two-way connection. Yeah. You can. In fact, let me show you. Let's see, I think we have some subfolders in Panopto here. So here's an example. We've got a marketing folder on our Panopto server, which contains a subfolder, Enterprise Demo, and Financial Service Extents. And one other thing that I just want to show off, because I think it's kind of cool. We did an internal Panopto dev team presentation about sort of our roadmap for the second half of the year. So I guess if you look really closely, you can see some stuff that's confidential. But one of the things that we did here was, we like to crank up what the software can do. And so we're able to handle, this is one of the things that's sort of distinct with Panopto versus any of the other solutions out there, is in most cases you have a choice. You say, I have video, and I can choose between PowerPoint, screen capture, or another video input source. We can have any number of inputs targeting the same time at the same time. So for this recording, what we did was we recorded me standing up and talking. We captured all my slides. And then we captured 2 other additional cameras, which could just be what we whiteboard cameras, document cameras, or whatever. One of them pointed at half the audience, the other pointed at the other half of the audience. So if we wanted to have a playback version of this, where I could see all of you on the playback as I'm answering the question, you can actually see me answering and see you guys reacting at the same time. So this is one of those really abstract things that we probably are not mapping to some particular use case, but it's just sort of a testament to we set out to build something that was completely open-ended, and so there's really kind of not a capture scenario that we can't handle. Everywhere from my phone in my pocket to several different presenters, each with their laptop back to back to back. Yeah. Sure, anything that you can link with the URL, we can embed in this right side view over here. You could stop the video, take the quiz, resume the video. We patented that, by the way. So I think we're the only ones that have it. All right, well, thank you, everybody.